Good afternoon, Junior 3. Today we will talk about different habitats. From the previous lesson, we agreed that habitat means environment in which plants and animals live and grow. Means different circumstances. Circumstances like weather, like the land, like the different animals live. Okay, so in each habitat there is certain type of animals, certain type of weather, certain type of land, certain type of food, certain type of plant. Like the first habitat we will study is polar habitat. Polar means the terminal area in the planet Earth. Okay, for example, the weather in polar habitat is cold and windy, ice covering everything like that in the image. Okay, polar habitat in which the habitat which ice covers everything. The weather is cold and windy. So, the animal which can live in this habitat must be suitable for living in this weather. Okay, this means that it should be covered with thick layer of fur. Okay, like what? Like the polar bear. Polar bear is covered with thick layer of fur which give it the warmth it needs. Okay, the second animal which can live under the water of the polar habitat is whale. Okay, the third animal is penguin. Penguin also is covered with thick layer of fur. Okay, the third one is Arctic fox. Fox also is covered with thick layer of fur. So there are 4 animals can live in the polar habitat: polar bear, whale, penguin, Arctic fox. Okay, and they are also have structures that enable them from living in the polar habitat or in the cold weather. Okay, number 3, the plants. The plants found in the polar habitat like shrubs which grow on the ground and moss which grows on the rock. Okay, so there are 2 types of plants in the polar habitat. Shrubs grow on the ground, moss grows on the rock. So in the polar habitat the weather is cold, windy, ice covered large areas. Animals which can live in the polar habitat: polar bear, whale, penguin, Arctic fox, and they are suitable for living in the cold weather because they are covered by thick fur, except the whale. The whale is a fish, so it lives under the cold water of the polar habitat, so it can't be covered by a fur. Okay, the 3 animals which is covered by thick layer of fur are polar bear, penguin, Arctic fox. The plants which live or grows in the polar habitat are shrubs which grow on the ground, moss which grows on the rock. Here we have finished the polar habitat. If I asked you, the weather in the polar habitat is dots and dots. The weather in the polar habitat is cold and windy. Dots and dots are plants that grow in the polar habitat, shrubs and moss. Dots is one of the animals that live in the polar habitat. You can say any type of animals that are previously mentioned above: polar bear, whale, penguin, and Arctic fox. But if I asked you, dots is one of the animals which are covered by thick fur, you should tell me that it can be polar bear, penguin, or Arctic fox, not the whale, because whale is a fish which live under the water of the polar habitat. It is cold water. The second type of habitat we will study together is rainforest habitat. Rainforest, from the name rainforest, it means it is a jungle and has rainy weather. Okay, so the weather in the rainforest habitat is rainy warm. Rainy warm, rainy and warm. Yes, rainy and warm. Okay. البليس بتاعها بيكون الاكويتر. Okay, the equator. Okay. The animals which live in the tropical or rainforest habitats is macaw. Macaw is a bird, monkey, frogs, and large snakes. Large snakes, yes, large snakes, because it is a jungle rainforest. Okay. The plants which live inside this habitat, tall trees which block sunlight from reaching the ground, and the ground plants which has big leaves to capture light. So there are two types of plants: tall trees which block sunlight from reaching the ground, and the ground plants which has big leaves to capture light. So if I asked you, the weather in the rainforest habitat is warm and rainy. Warm and rainy. Warm because this habitat is found near the equator. Yes, near the equator. In this place, the weather is very warm and rainy. Okay. Number two, dots and dots are from the animals that live in the rainforest habitat. Rainforest, so there are many jungles. What are the animals that can live in jungles? Macaw bird, monkeys, frogs, and large snakes. Number three, dots is one of the plants that grow in the rainforest habitat. Rainforest habitat, so there are two types of plants: tall trees which block the sunlight, and plants with large leaves to capture sunlight. The third habitat is grassland habitat. Grassland habitat is the dry flat land found all over the world. Like what? Like here in Egypt we have large areas of grassland. So grassland only in neutral weather? No. It may be tropical grassland if the grassland is found near the equator, and temperate grassland if the grassland is found in neutral weathers like here in Egypt. So there are tropical grassland in warm, it is warm all the year, and the temperate grassland which is warm in summer but it is cold in winter. Okay, if I asked you in Egypt, what do you think the type of weather or the type of grassland found in Egypt? In Egypt here we have more than one season in the year. We have summer, autumn, winter, and spring. So we have temperate grassland which is warm in summer and cold in winter. Okay. So what do you think the animals which can live in the grassland? Okay, the prairie dog, the giraffe, the rabbits, and lions and cheetahs. Okay. So the plants which can grow in the grassland is few trees, tall grasses, and bushes. Okay. If I asked you some question, the weather in the temperate means neutral. Temperate grassland is dots in summer, warm in summer, and dots in winter, cold in winter. Plants in the grassland are dot trees, few trees, and dot grass, tall grasses. Okay. The fourth type of habitat is wet land. From its name, wet. Wet means related to water, found where the land meets fresh or salty water, like in the banks of the river. Okay, so what do you think about the weather in the wetland? warm or cold or have multiple seasons according to the place it is found. Okay, if it is found in the equator, so it will be warm. If it is found in a cold place, so it will be cold. If it is found in multiple season place, so it will have more than one season. Okay, what do you think about the animals which can be found in the wetland habitat? Land means what? Wetland means the land which is found beside the water. Okay, so beside the water we can find what? Frogs, yes, and turtle. Yes, we will find the animals which can live in the land and in the water. Okay, so what are the animals which can live in both water and land? Okay, frogs and turtle. The plants which can live in wetland are the plants which can grow at the top or under the water. The plants which can grow either on the top or under the water. Okay, if I asked you, plants can live water in wetland habitat. In wetland habitat, wetland, so it means water and land means wet and dry, so plants can live on the top or under, okay. Number 2, wetland may have how many seasons? Weather may have multiple seasons. Well, okay. Number 3, dots can live in wetland habitat. Turtle and frogs. Well, so here I have an activity. Compare between desert habitat and your habitat. Okay, desert habitat. The weather and temperature. In desert habitat, the weather is hot, and the weather and temperature are hot and dry. Okay, hot and dry. Is there any rains in the desert habitat? No, there are no rains in desert habitat. Okay, well, living organism. What are the living organisms that can live in the desert habitat? Camel, cactus, dolphin, human. Camel and cactus. Camel is an animal, cactus is a plant. Okay, anyone knows the cactus? Yes, cactus is sabar. Non-living things which can be found in the desert habitat is tent, car, water, sun. Tent and sun. Sun means شمس زي ما احنا عارفين. Tent means الخيام اللي بتبقى موجودة في الصحراء. تمام؟ وده كان short description كده عن الديزرت habitat. Okay? So when I describe my habitat, what do you think about our habitat? Grassland, wetland, rainforest or polar habitat? Our habitat seems to be grassland. Okay, can you describe the grassland according to the weather and temperature? Yes, our grassland can be described as temperate grassland because it has more than one season. We have summer, autumn, spring and winter. Okay, living organisms can live in our habitat. You can say any living organism, animals or plants that can live in our habitat. Like what? Dogs, cows, horses. In the zoo, what can we see in the zoo? We can see giraffe, we can see lion, we can see birds, more than one type of bird. Okay, so we can now say the non-living things which can found in our grassland. Non-living things like what? Like anything characterizes our habitat. Okay, think about it and try to say. Compare between polar habitat and rainforest habitat. The polar habitat is located the two poles of the planet Earth. But the rainforest habitat is located near the equator of the Earth. The weather in the polar habitat is cold and windy, but in the rainforest is warm and rainy. Number 3, we can say that the plants which can grow in the polar habitat are shrubs and what? Moss. But the plants in the tropical areas or rainforest are tall trees which block sunlight and plants with large leaves to capture sunlight. Okay, animals which are found in polar habitat are penguin, fox, polar bear, whale, okay, and what? There are 4 types of animals, but animals which can live in the equator or tropical areas or rainforest areas are macaw, monkey, large snakes. Okay, so we finished the comparison between a polar habitat and a tropical habitat. Match the animal to its habitat and evidence. The animal is polar bear, so its suitable habitat is polar habitat. Okay, the evidence that they are covered with white fur to keep it warm, and they lives in cold weather. Giraffe can live in grassland. Okay, because they have long neck, so it can eat leaves from long trees. Bull snake, it is a large snake. It can live in rainforest habitat because it crawls to hunt food or dry ground and high trees, lives in hot weather, or because it lives on both land and water and eat worms. No, because it crawls means يزحف, to hunt food on dry ground and high trees, lives on hot weather. Okay, salamander is an amphibian. Amphibian means can live in both wet and dry habitat. Okay, it can live in wet land because it lives on both land and water to eat worms. Okay, by this activity we have finished the lesson of today. Thank you. Try to solve it by yourselves and send me the answers. Thank you, Junior 3.